I've been wanting to tell this story for a long time, but it's not an easy one. Before I became a nurse, before Zoe, before this version of me that people see now, was a young mother and had to make one of the hardest decisions of my life. I was pregnant with my daughter, Anne Gabrielle. I was about 8 months pregnant when I was involved in a car accident, and I ended up in shock trauma. This is when everything changed. I can remember being there with my mom because Jose was at work, and I can vividly remember the doctor coming in, and my mom and I were joking, and my mom stated, "Are you sure this was a girl?" And the doctor looked at my mom and I and said, "You all are worried about this baby being a girl. You all need to be worried about whether this baby lives." I'll never forget that. So they ended up discharging me, and I had a follow-up with my doctor. Now, this doctor was a very popular doctor in my town at the time, and he used to always play. Now, remind you, I said I was 8 months pregnant. I had been going for prenatal care, so nothing had ever come up about anything being wrong with the baby until that shock trauma visit. So I go to the doctor's office. I went by myself because, again, Jose was at work. My mom was working at the time. The doctor had never advised me to bring anyone, so I didn't. And when I got to the doctor's office, he said, when you went to shock trauma the other day, they discovered that your baby might possibly have something that was called Dandy Walker syndrome. And he said to me, well, since we didn't pick up what was wrong with the baby, you have options. You can terminate. I said I was 8 months. So at that point, termination was not an option for me. And I can remember crying so hard. I can remember leaving that doctor's office, and at that time, cell phones weren't prevalent. So I'm trying to drive to get myself home, and I'm trying to call my mom. And I can remember just pulling over at every time I saw a payphone. I'm trying to call him, Jose too. Trying to call my mom. It was crazy. I was so distraught because I had thought that I did everything right. I did all the tests. I did prenatal care. So this was complete devastation to me. So I ended up going in for further testing, and they determined that she had a condition called holoprosencephaly. Holoprosencephaly is a condition where the brain does not fully divide into two hemispheres. About 1 in 10,000 people had it at that time. And most of the time, it does not result in live births. And at that time, it was crazy because there wasn't social media like we have it now, and there wasn't a lot of information out about the condition. There was no Facebook really, there was no TikTok, there was no Instagram. So there wasn't a way to really find people quickly with the condition. So I did end up finding one group on the internet for people whose kids had holoprosencephaly. And I was devastated because at that time, they were telling me crazy things like, I remember a specific doctor at a specific hospital who we ended up getting terminated told me that I should terminate my pregnancy even though I was 8 months, close to 9 months, because she could be born with 3 eyes or crazy things like that. I was very scared and confused, and I just felt alone because not many people suffer from that condition. And there were people whose kids lived or that were born alive, but the prognosis, again, is very poor for that condition. So even if she was born alive, there was no guarantee. I think the oldest person at that time that I had found out about was 23. But I am thankful that I did find the support group because they did help me to realize that I was making the right decision by not terminating. They did help me realize that, when I found out that she was born with that condition, I kept saying, Lord, why me? But then I had to look at it like, why not me? I was having nightmares and I was prepared for the worst. The doctors prepared me for the worst. Told me that she might be born dead, or if she did survive through birth, that she might not live for very long after she was born. But I couldn't terminate. They kept trying to push me to terminate or let me give the baby to them so that they could experiment. And that was an absolute no for me. I felt her moving. She was a part of me. As a mother, I could not make the decision to terminate. I chose to carry her. I chose to meet her. And on top of the holoprosencephaly, it was determined that she would be born with a condition called hydrocephalus, which is fluid in her brain or her head. And so I made the decision to have an elective C-section. I chose to love Anne Gabrielle for as long as God allowed me to have her. And there she was born. She was one of the most beautiful babies I had ever seen. The doctors thought that she was only going to live for hours, but she ended up staying with us for 6 months. Those 6 months changed my life forever. That is part one of her story, our story.